Seriously, where's my Captain Planet movie? That's the one I really want to see. That's not a joke. Why would I joke about Captain Planet? Hey guys, I'm Carla. I'm a geek. I want to talk about stuff that I really love with other fellow geeks. Problem is, I live in freaking Narnia. The only outlet I have for my fangirliness is online. This is what this vlog is about. Every week I will talk about a geeky topic that I like. Movies, TV, books, anything that I can think of. You can also suggest topics to me in a comment below or just going to my website and sending me a message. Every Thursday I will have a video for you where I discuss a geeky topic that is relevant for that week or that something that happened recently. For my first topic, I want to talk about something that is a very big deal these days, and that is superhero movies. There are superhero movies everywhere these days. Of course I love them. I will go watch every single one of them. They're mostly great. A lot of people get a lot of enjoyment from them. They're some of the most watched movies of all time with the biggest, box office intakes of all time. And I think in general superhero movies are a good thing. However, if you as a geek have been either brave enough or stupid enough to go into, let's say, a superhero forum, the comment section of a superhero related video, you will find 1,001 detractors who are practically screaming this one simple question. Superhero movies, are they destroying cinema? Let me make a disclaimer here. It has to be said. I'm not saying that you have to love superhero movies. If it's not your thing, it's not your thing. I don't like horror movies. I don't go to the movie theaters to watch them. I don't like to suffer, I don't pay so that filmmakers can make me suffer. I don't. My point is, I don't go around telling people, arguing with other people, that the horror movie genre is destroying cinema. I just don't do that. I thought it was important to take a moment to think about those detractors of superhero movies. Okay, let's hear out what they're saying, and then argue pros and cons and debate whether or not they might have a point. Their opinions are valid, and that's what I'm here to do right now. I narrowed it down to about 6 points. They were originally 4, but I just cannot contain myself from adding and adding and adding to this thing till we ended up with 6 now. I have 6 points that I have found are the biggest complaints that people who are anti-superhero films have against superhero films. I'm gonna just talk about each of the 6 points, and we're gonna go see whether it's valid or it's not valid, what they have to say for or against, and why you might be able to counteract each of those points. In the end, this is all down to a matter of personal preference. If you don't like superhero movies, that's okay. My only point for this video is to state that just because they exist doesn't mean that they're destroying your life. Point number 1, there's too many superhero movies nowadays. That's what the detractors say, at least. Being the nerd that I am, I'm an engineer, so I like my math. Bless the internet. Decided to go look up the numbers, and the numbers won't lie. I looked up the superhero movies for the last 10 years. Turns out there have been 38 of them. 38 superhero movies in the last 10 years. That sounds like a lot. It sounds like a lot of superhero movies. The most superhero movies we've had in a year has been 5 so far. Of course, 2016 is not over yet. This will be the year that has the most superhero movies ever with 6. Okay. 6 superhero movies. This will be the year that has the most superhero movies ever. So what does that mean really? 2013, which was one of the years that had the most superhero movies so far with 5, had 5 superhero movies out of 161 wide releases that year. 5 out of 161 means a 3%. 3% of the movies released in 2015 were superhero movies. Doesn't look so huge now, right? And that's just the wide releases, okay? There's a ton of smaller movies that also go on a limited release. What does that mean? That they're not in like thousands and thousands of theaters? What do the numbers look like there? 5 movies out of 688 movies released at least in one theater in the United States That's a 0.7%. 0.7%. That's like nothing. Think about it again. Are there too many superhero movies? Really? Are there really? That's just 1 year though. Maybe that year just had an unusual amount of non-superhero movies, and that's why the total seemed to be very diluted. Let's try again. 2015 had 3 movies, 3 superhero movies. Those 3 superhero movies were part of 125 wide release movies that year. 125. That is a 2.4%. So that's even less superhero movies that year in comparison with the whole of wide release movies. If we count just general releases that aren't wide, any movie that was released in at least one theater in the United States, you have 3 out of 697 movies. 697. That is a 0.4%. 0.4% of all movies were superhero movies in 2015. So what does this tell you? Yes, it's very probable that the number of superhero movies is going up every year. 2015 we have 3, this year we have 6. We've gone from like 5 maximum before to 6 this year. We might have even more later on. But what happens? More movies are being made each year. Movies in general. Not just wide releases, but also limited release movies. We had 697 movies released just last year. If you wanted to go watch a movie that is not a superhero movie, you have them. They're there. Go watch them if you want. Don't blame superhero movies for it. You have a ridiculously small percentage of superhero movies in the total of movies released in a year. Are they too many? No, they're not. They're not too many. That's just it. The only reason most people think there are too many superhero movies is because they're literally everywhere. You can see them everywhere. You get off the train, you have a poster for Avengers. You're driving down the street, you have a poster for Deadpool right there. You turn on your TV and what do you know? Batman and Superman are fighting right before your favorite show. They're everywhere. That's totally true, and I totally get it. Even I, as a geek, get oversaturated with superhero movie marketing. I understand, but you have to keep it very clear in your head. Just because they have more marketing than most movies doesn't mean that there's too many of them. Too many superhero movies in comparison to other movies. It's just a marketing thing. Superhero movies cost a lot of money. That's the truth. They have these huge budgets. They just cost a lot of money. They have to make up that money because otherwise it wouldn't be a viable business at all. If you put $250 million into making an Avengers or a Batman v Superman, you have to get that money back somehow. In order to get that money back, you have to make sure that every single person in a city knows that that movie is coming out. Not all of them are gonna go watch it, but if you can get 1 or 2 every time they get off the subway, every time they turn a corner on their car, every time they turn on their TV, you can get at least one of them to buy a ticket. You're closer to getting your money back and even winning more money. That's the point of movies. If one movie has a $250 million budget, plus marketing expenses, you want to make at least $1 billion back total box office. They have to sell the movie. Just like me saying that there's too much, I don't know, Mr. Clean products. Every time I turn on the TV, I see a Mr. Clean ad. They have to sell the stuff. It's the same with superhero movies. Because their budgets are so big, because these are huge movies that cost a lot of money to make, they have to pay a lot of money to their cast members. The set pieces are incredibly huge. And then you have to add the special effects. Movies cost a lot of money to make, okay? So they have to make up for their budget, and they do that by marketing the heck out of these movies. So you see them everywhere. They're everywhere. You probably hate them on sight just because you can't get away from them, but that doesn't mean there's too many of them. 6 movies this year. 3 out of 697, 0.4%. That can never be called too many. Statistically, it's never going to be too many. Keep that in mind. The reason why you see them everywhere is because they're expensive to make and they have to get their money back. Moving on to our second biggest complaint about superhero movies and why they're destroying cinema. Number 2, they all suck. Again, I have to go to the math on this. The easiest way to check the numbers on whether or not a movie is good is to browse Rotten Tomatoes. That's where the critics are. People can even still vote on the movie. I'd say it's the closest thing we have to a numerical value for the quality of a movie. It's not as black and white. Of course, I know how the fresh and rotten ratings in Rotten Tomatoes are calculated. It's not as easy to say as saying that a movie that has 100% is the best movie ever. Not necessarily. It just means that everybody who watched it liked it. It doesn't mean it's better or worse than another one that has a lower tomato score. But as we're going on a black and white, as close as we can get to a black and white, like not like deal, that's the closest we can get, and that's why I am going to be using Rotten Tomato scores. The easiest, quickest, fastest way, and it's also the way that most people look at critical reception for a movie. People just go to FreakingNarnia.com, check the number, and think, this movie has a 30, it must suck. Hey, this movie has an 85, must be pretty good. I guess I'll watch it. So I went to Rotten Tomatoes and checked the critic and audience totals for superhero movies in the last 10 years. 38 superhero movies, as I said, were made in the last 10 years. 2016 is still not over yet, but so far I'm counting the 2 that have been released so far, which are Deadpool and BVS. And even counting those 2, the average critic score for these 38 movies is a 64.1, which is relatively average. If this were university, the movies would be passing the test. Barely, but passing. Overall, these movies are relatively well received. This 64% is from critics who are much more critical, as the name implies. On the other hand, you have the audience numbers, which tend to be higher than the critical numbers. People go watch movies they think they will like. The audience average for the 38 superhero movies released in the last 10 years was 70.2. That's not just passing anymore, that's a C. That's a solid C. Not great, but it means that people in general like these movies. Audiences like superhero movies, that's all there is to it. Keep in mind, these numbers that I'm citing to you right now is counting all 38 of the superhero movies released in the last 10 years. That's including the Green Lantern movie. That's including Ghost Rider 2, which I didn't even know existed. That's even including the last Fantastic Four movie, which has a grand total Rotten Tomato score of a 9%. 9. It's terrible. Oh my god, I had never seen anything so low. I'm not counting out those 3, and it still gets a passing rate from critics and from audiences. If I don't count those 3 crap sacks, the critics go up to 68.2. That's almost a 70, so that's almost a C. Coming from critics, that's saying a lot, because critics tend to not like anything. The audience rating goes up to 73.5. That's almost a 74. That's like a C+. It does count that those few movies that are bad, that are not liked in the superhero world, they're really bad. I mean, 9%, 12%, those are really bad. Just as with any other genre, you have some movies that are really great and you have some movies that are really bad. Overall, even counting those, superhero movies get a good rap. Certainly more than comedies. Comedies are very touch and go. Superhero movies have a passing grade. If you get how many of them are fresh, 25 out of 38 of these superhero movies are fresh. That is a 68% freshness. That means that 7 out of every 10 superhero movies that come out are good, are liked by critics. On the other hand, you get the percentage rotten, which is 13 out of 38. That is a 32%. 3 out of every 10, which is a lot better than the touch and go-ness of other genres. And of course, for every genre, you will have movies that are good, and you will have movies that are bad. As much as drama is the darlings of Oscar season, some of them are not good enough to be nominated for anything. Even in drama, you can have good movies and you can have bad movies. Why is the superhero genre treated any differently? It has 4 more good movies than they do bad movies. 7 to 3. Why is the superhero genre so maligned? Let's count those that are really bad, like real stinkers, the ones under 30% critic rating. Out of 38 movies, only 7 have a tomato meter score under 30. Only 7 out of 38. That is an 18%. 1 in 5 maybe are so bad they're almost universally hated. 1 in 5. That's like nothing. If you take into account the critic and audience totals for the last 5 years, the critics total goes up to 65.5%, whereas the audience totals go up to 74.5%. What is that telling me? It tells me that in the last 5 years, superhero movies have actually gotten better. We're improving. We're going up. The trend is going up. Why do people keep expecting the genre to tank, suddenly start spewing out all stinkers? They're getting better. They're learning from the stinkers they've made before. Green Lantern. Taking those lessons learned and applying them into making better superhero movies. Think about that for a while. I don't think the numbers lie. They might not be the best genre in the world, certainly not the best showcase of performances necessarily, but they're not bad movies. People like them. Critics like them. Why do you bash them as bad? The numbers don't lie, man. This leads me to point number 3. Number 3 complaint from people who don't like superhero movies and want them to die is they're all the same. And certainly there's some validity to this in the sense that we get so many superhero origin stories. I mean, how many times have we seen Spider-Man be bitten by a radioactive spider? We know this. We don't need to see it again. Every superhero movie, it seems, has to come with an origin story, and people are getting a little tired of that. It's understandable that it can get old really fast. At the same time, I think it's not necessarily a bad point to have superhero origin stories, because at their core, and this is even before the movies were a thing, just from cartoons or just from the original comics, the whole point of a superhero story is escapism. We all wish we could have superpowers and fly and save the world. We all want that. And the origin story is the point where our mundane life, everyday life of just routine and getting up from bed and going to work and, you know, living with your family, the point where our everyday lives meet extraordinary. That's what it is. The origin story is the center of the hopes of escapism that every single person has. If a studio or a filmmaker wants to make us relate to this character, to this person who becomes a superhero, the best point to make them the most relatable to us is the point where they were just like us, and then all of a sudden they turn into something even better. Why do we keep seeing origin stories? Because that's the point where the superhero is most relatable to us, everyday life people who don't have superpowers. Are origin stories a bad thing necessarily? No. They do get old. You wish that you could see something new, something different from them, but at the same time, you gotta understand why superhero origin stories are a thing. We relate to someone who one day was just a regular person and the next day was extraordinary. We relate to them as a normal person and we want to be extraordinary. Origin stories are attractive to audiences because they can relate. Are we gonna keep seeing them? Yes. I wish they can do it some other different way or whatever, but origin stories are just not going away. That's not gonna happen, and that doesn't mean that they're all the same. The trick is in making each story different enough to separate it from previous stories. We've seen Spider-Man's origin 700 times already. Let's try something else. Each superhero has their own origin story that can be treated differently to get a completely different movie. Not only that, but with the advent of cinematic universes like Marvel's or the one that DC is trying to build right now, you have story beyond the origin story now. You can see Iron Man and Captain America coming to terms with leading the Avengers like 4 movies down the road after they got their powers. You have more stories to tell than just origins now. That is a good thing. You can take the time to plan things out so that each movie can also have a different feel. Superhero movies are one genre, but they have many different subgenres that they're influenced by. This is a world where you can have a Captain America Winter Soldier that feels like a 70s spy thriller. You can have a Dark Knight that feels like a police procedural almost. It feels like a noir movie. You can have these things now because you don't need to start from the beginning with Batman anymore. So you can give it a different flavor. You can have something like Guardians of the Galaxy, which is space opera comedy at its best. It doesn't even feel like a superhero movie at times. You can have something like Ant-Man, which is a heist film. It has that Ocean's 11 feel to it that makes it different from the others in the genre. The trick is to keep giving each movie its own flavor, its own subgenre that makes it different for people who are following them. They almost don't feel like superhero movies, they feel like genre picks that just happen to have a superhero in the lead. They're not all the same. They're not. And if you've seen each of these movies that I mentioned, you will notice the tone is completely different, the acting is completely different, the writing is completely different for each of them because they all have their own flavor. That is a very important thing to think about when you're talking about superhero movies. They're not all the same. This leads me to my fourth point. My fourth complaint from people who want superhero movies to go down the toilet. Why are they all connected? Why can't we just have a movie that stands by itself anymore? It's all gotta be part of the MCU. It's all gotta be part of the DCEU. Why do they have to connect everything? People complain a lot about this because they think that because a movie is part of a cinematic universe, that means that they can't just go to the theater, catch it on, and understand everything. And it's partly true. I mean, there are certain things here and there that you can only really get if you've seen all the other movies from the cinematic universe. But like I said in my previous point, cinematic universes are not bad. It allows you to move on from an origin point. You have an actual story. It almost feels like the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a TV show that I watch new episodes of every 6 months or so. There's a storyline going through it that is solid and that builds upon itself and allows for more depth of the characters, just like a TV show would. 2-hour episodes of a show that is shown on giant screens. On the one hand, it's bad that you kind of have to watch all of them. If you miss one, you won't get the full impact of the movie, but at the same time, it allows for better storytelling, deeper characters, and just all around more rounded stories. Most of the time, you can go watch one of these movies and they have to be self-contained. You don't have to watch everything that came before in order to understand it. You might miss 1 or 2 jokes. You might miss like 1 or 2 little shout-outs here and there. You won't be completely lost. You will get the full impact of the movie, really. It's happened to me. I don't like Iron Man. I like him better now that Downey Jr. is in the role, but I don't like Iron Man as a character. I didn't like him in the comics. I didn't like him in the cartoons when I was growing up. I didn't like Iron Man, right? So when the first Iron Man movie came out, I wasn't interested. I didn't go watch it. I still haven't watched it. I don't care about that movie at all. I didn't go watch the second one either, or the third one. I haven't watched any of the Iron Mans. And I was quite happy to just go sit in the theater and watch the Avengers, and I got the whole thing. Nothing felt off. There was nothing that I felt I didn't understand. So when people tell me that they can't go and watch these movies without having watched the previous one, it makes me laugh. I haven't watched any of the 3 Iron Man movies. I didn't watch the Hulk movie. I didn't watch The Winter Soldier until after Avengers Age of Ultron. So you can watch these movies out of order, or you can just watch a few of them. It doesn't mean that you're gonna be completely lost. It helps? Sure, it helps. It adds to the experience for sure. But it doesn't mean that you have to be lost without them. People complaining that it's all connected, I don't think it's a bad thing, and I know that from experience. I think it only adds to the characters and the stories that they can tell, and it's not a requirement for you to see all of them. It's really not. Do I recommend that you see all of them so you can be part of the conversation? Sure, but it's not a requirement. It's just not. Now, on to point number 5. Detractors of superhero movies say that they're too expensive, they are nothing but CGI fests, and it's a waste of money. Superhero movies come with a really, really, really high budget. That's just the way it is. See, here's the thing. Detractors have a point in the sense that you have stuff like the Netflix Marvel series, Daredevil and Jessica Jones, the upcoming Luke Cage. Those series are so good. So good. Only because they have the name Marvel ahead of them, it doesn't mean that it's a superhero story. It's a story about people. They're stories about people, and they're so dark and so deep, and they make you think so much. They're almost universally praised, especially Daredevil, which I haven't seen, but eventually I will. These Netflix series are so praised by so many people that they could compete with any other Emmy winning series out there. One thing that those Netflix series have kind of proven is that you don't need a huge CGI budget in order to tell a superhero story. These are stories about humans that just happen to have special powers, but they're not flashy special powers. You can tell incredible stories, deep stories, layered stories without the need for CGI. So why do the big blockbuster superhero movies cost so much? Ticket prices tend to go up. Even without the increase of superhero movies and just general movie budgets, even with that increase, ticket prices are on the rise. That's just inflation, that it happens. Ticket prices are never going to be cheaper. And the more expensive a trip to the theater, the more choosy the people are going to be when it comes to what they're watching in the theater. I'm a regular person, okay? I'm not a millionaire. While I love movies of any kind. I love going to the theater. For me, it's a great experience. I just don't have enough money. Okay, I'm broke. I just don't have the money. So I save my money and my time for movies that are big enough that I feel I need to see them in order to be part of the conversation. That on one hand. On the other hand, I go see movies that I know will keep me entertained. As much as I would love to see the Oscar-winning drama from last year, as much as I would love to see them because I love me a good movie, I love great performances, I love good writing, I love incredible cinematography. As much as I would like to see them, I'm not paying $15 to suffer. Drama makes me suffer. It hits my heart really hard. So if it's one of these movies that I know are going to be like really hard hitting, I don't go see that in a theater. I don't like paying $15 in order to be sad when I leave. It's a tricky thing, you know. People become more choosy when things are more expensive, and since they're more choosy, they're saving their money and their time for movies that are a spectacle, for something that you really need to see in the big screen. The drama that won the Oscar last year, sure, I want to see it, but I can wait for VOD. I can watch it on my TV screen. I don't think it necessitates a huge screen in a theater. I think a lot of people are moving on to that way of thinking, and they're only going to the theater for movies that they know will look 1,000 times better on the big screen. That includes movies that have a lot of CGI, movies that are spectacles. So unless people are cinephiles who go to the theater for like once every week or so, most people only make it to the theater for the big movies, these spectacle movies. Therefore, movies are becoming something that would be like a pop culture event. That is why superhero movies make so much money, because people wait. They save their money in their pocket, and they save their time, and they wait until they can go and watch these huge spectacle movies in the big screen as they were meant to. This way of thinking is evolving to the point that we're basically forcing our movie-going experience to be about these event movies. Because of the technological advances that we have, people want movies to increase in quality. They say, okay, we have computers now that can do incredible things. I'm not going to go watch something where the special effects are shoddy. I'm not going to. People expect quality from movies, especially these big event movies. And if people expect quality, that means the price has to be there. CGI and incredible set pieces and amazing actors, those cost money. They cost a lot of money. Big spectacle movies tend to have big budgets. Can it be done with smaller budgets? Sure. Sure, it can be done. Deadpool just proved that 2 months ago. With a budget of like 56 million, was it? They made an incredible movie. It didn't have the flashy effects that an Avengers movie might have had, but it was a good movie. People expect more and more. They expect better and better. And therefore, we can only assume that movie budgets are going to go up. And the more they're going to go up, the more expensive tickets are gonna make, and the less we'll be able to go to the movies on a regular basis. It's sad, but it is what it is. And I think it's not something that's inherent to superhero movies per se, but just the mentality of people when it comes to blockbusters. If I'm going to spend $15 out of my pocket in order to go see a movie, and on top of that I have to add the popcorn and the soda and whatever it is that you eat when you go to the theater, getting to my car and spend a significant amount of time in traffic in order to get to the movie theater, a 2-hour trip to the movie theater in reality is something like 4 or 5 hours while you come and go. If I'm going to spend my money and my time on something that I can probably watch at home a couple of months later. It better be quality and it better be entertaining. Are movies, especially superhero movies, CGI fests? Sure, a lot of them are. That's because that's what people expect from them. They want to see a spectacle. You don't go to a concert in a sold-out stadium only to see the one artist in a little chair playing guitar all by himself with no lighting, no screens, no pyrotechnics, no anything. You don't. You pay not only for the artist, you pay for the spectacle as well. That's what's happening with superhero movies. They're becoming events, and as they become events, yeah, budgets are going to go up because we expect more and more quality. One good thing might be that the more and more common these effects become, they get cheaper, but at the same time, more and better effects start coming out, better ways to do things start coming out, and technology is always expensive when it comes out. That actually leads me to my sixth point, where detractors of superhero movies say that this is the one reason why superhero movies are bad. Point number 6 is that big blockbusters, especially superhero movies, are taking all the attention away from small indie films. Okay, I can see why you would think that, because people don't go watch indies as much as they go watch, Avengers. If an indie movie could make Avengers numbers, it wouldn't be an indie movie anymore, right? At first glance, you think this statement makes sense. But does it really? Really? Let's face it, indie movies by definition just don't have a lot of money, which means they don't have a lot of marketing money. You might not even hear about an indie movie until you see it at the Oscars the next year. But while it was in theaters, nobody heard about it, nobody knew. They can't market. They're very limited in their release and in their marketing. On the other hand, big blockbusters come from studios who have money, can spend millions and millions of dollars in advertising for those movies, and they generally make their money back. The key thing about superhero movies and blockbusters in general is that they draw audiences to theaters. What happens in theaters? You have the posters for all the movies that are coming out recently, including indies. You're drawing people to the theater, and you're making them realize, hey, I hadn't heard about this movie, or hey, look, this looks interesting. And that is free marketing for indie movies. You're paying attention to a movie that you might not have even heard of otherwise. Can we really say that they're taking audiences away from indies? No, they're helping them. It's the same with trailers, for example. A small drama film that the studio's promoting that they know might not make a lot of money, they're not gonna waste their money on marketing. But they might put a trailer in front of, say, Batman v Superman, and then everybody who's going in to watch Batman v Superman is going to know, hey, this movie actually looks good, maybe I'll give it a try. I don't think they're taking anything away from indie movies at all. In fact, they might even be helping them. Why take it so against superhero movies? There's a market for everything. You want to go see a smaller movie? It's there. Just go see it. But don't blame other movies, blockbusters or superhero movies, just because they exist. They're not taking anything away from indie movies, they're actually even helping. Keep that in mind. And next time, maybe you want to go watch a superhero movie, a big blockbuster, for example, Captain America Civil War is coming out in a few weeks. What about you go see Captain America that day, you pay attention to the trailers or the posters at the movie theater, and you say, hey, maybe I will go watch one of these indies next week. That's how they help, and do help indie movies. They need your help. They don't get as much viewership as they should, and some of them are really great. So put the blame where it should be, which is not on superhero movies' shoulders. And that's about it for my 6 reasons why some detractors say that the superhero genre should die. I do not think it should die. Of course, I don't think it's for everyone. If you don't like superhero movies, that's fine. It's totally fine. Nobody's pushing you to go. Nobody's putting a gun through your head to push you to go and watch Captain America. It's fine. It's okay not to like them. Just don't go around telling people that the genre needs to die. It's not fair. There's something out there for everyone, and whether that is superhero movies or drama or humor. Do comedy sequels suck? Yeah, most of them do, but I don't go around telling people that they shouldn't make comedy sequels anymore. Some of them are good. Some people like them. That's kind of my point. If you're going to argue with a superhero lover that superhero movies are bad and they should die, then maybe think about it before you say that, because the genre is going nowhere but up these days. People like these movies. critics like these movies. Even though they're really expensive and they have a lot of CGI and that might not be your thing, it's probably other people's things. That's kind of the general idea of this video. If you agree with me, do comment below. If you don't agree with me, if you think superhero movies will die, sure, go ahead and tell me, but I will most likely ignore it. And if you like superhero movies, which one are you most excited about this year? 2016 is going to be the year of superhero movies. We're gonna have 6, guys. 6. It was almost 7, but they pushed Gambit, but 6. If you like superhero movies and are excited for this year, just tell me what you think in a comment below. I'll be sure to reply. We can fangirl together. Also, comment and tell me any geeky topics that you want me to talk about from TV or from movies, stuff that's happening nowadays in the geeky world. Be sure to comment and let me know what you want me to talk about. This is important. Or you can also visit my website at FreakingNarnia.com and send me a message there. If I know about the topic and I can talk about it for a little bit, I'll be sure to take your suggestion into account. Let me know what you think about this video. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Be sure to subscribe to my channel at FreakingNarnia.com here on YouTube. I will have videos every week. Every Thursday I will have a new video for you guys, and hopefully it will all be to your liking and you'll have fun here with me while we talk about geeky stuff. You can also find me on Twitter, on Tumblr, on Instagram. The links are down there in the description. I like to talk about geeky stuff everywhere I am. I also have another personal video channel here on YouTube. It's called Bookending. That's bookend.i.ng, where I talk exclusively about books. I read the endings of books and then just discuss that ending and fangirl all about it. Be sure to check that out while you're here too, and I will see you guys next Thursday with another video about geekiness all the way from freaking Narnia. Bye! Very big deal these days. You can't see my fingers.